Content warning. Check the show notes for more information. It's August 28, 1886, and another remarkable event is about to be uncovered by Arion, Rebecca, and Olly, the Retrospectors.
Don't jump off that bridge, said virtually nobody today in history in 1886. Because although it was illegal, it is what passed for entertainment at the time. Any man brave/foolish enough to try to survive a jump from the Brooklyn Bridge could attract a hell of a crowd. Today, it was Larry Donovan, known henceforth as champion jumper of the world, who, from this moment, built himself an all-too-brief viral career.
Yeah, shortly before, a guy called Steve Brody, a local New York daredevil, had claimed to have leapt from the bridge and survived. I mean, Brody was an unemployed gambler who had apparently made the bet with a local saloon keeper, not necessarily the most trustworthy narrator. And then a rumour emerged that he'd actually entered the water from a rowboat and then had a dummy thrown in from the bridge around the same spot he was waiting to emerge. But nonetheless, Brody had become...
Oh, that's a great trick.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a more credulous time. Brody did become famous nonetheless. He did several more attested bridge jumps and earned enough to open his own saloon. And in fact, the expression to do a Brody, to mean jumping from a great height, remained in the US vernacular for decades. And so Larry Donovan saw all the attention that Brody had got for basically just saying he dumped it and understandably thought, I bet I'd get loads of attention for actually doing it. And he had a little bit of clout behind him in the sense that he worked for the Police Gazette. And despite the name, the magazine was not a gazette of police business. It was actually a pretty trashy kind of forerunner of the men's magazine, full of sports, celebrity tittle-tattle, pictures of pretty girls, and dumb features like, hey, look, this guy jumped off at a Brooklyn Bridge.
Larry Donovan even referenced Steve Brody in his own jump because he actually chose a spot that was 29 feet higher than the one Brody claimed to have jumped from, just so that I guess, like, on the off chance people believed that Brody had done it in the first place, this jump was a more impressive one. He wore weighted shoes so that he would maintain his posture during the fall, which was actually quite sensible because when you do fall, if you are to ever fall from a bridge, do make sure you go in a sort of pencil position. That is the advice. He also wore padded leggings for protection upon impact, also sensible. This bit's a bit less sensible. He wore a black derby hat just for a sort of touch of flair.
That's showmanship.
Yeah, that's just showmanship. That was not necessary. Anyway, he made the jump successfully, and 2 rescue boats filled with friends and staff members from the New York Police Gazette picked him up when he surfaced, and a judge charged him with disorderly conduct and fined him $10 for obstructing traffic in the first place on the bridge. And the Gazette's editor, Richard K. Fox, stepped in to pay that fine.
Yeah, which is sort of uncomfortable, I think. I mean, they're facilitating this whole thing at every set of the process. Donovan was a typesetter, but also if you look at the rest of his career prior to this, he'd been in the US Army, he was a poet, he was a printer. There's nothing to suggest that he wanted really to be a stuntman. You know, he just found himself in this sort of weird lads mag environment where this kind of jackass-style prank was de rigueur. And this is why I mentioned it a bit like being viral fame. It wasn't his idea. It was just that because he worked at the New York Police Gazette, he was sort of aware of the meme. You know, it's a bit like happy slapping or something. It was a bad idea to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge, but it had gone viral. It was an easy way to make your name, which was a process he and all of his employers understood. And he understood the algorithm. He knew how to make it happen for himself. And the Police Gazette, when he jumped successfully off the bridge, as you say, they scooped him up. They dropped him off. They gave him a badge. They got the exclusive. It's just a bit like, yeah, but he definitely could have died.
It's classic junior journalist stuff.
Exactly.
It's like the Vice article. I jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge and survived.
Yeah, it is basically
It's exactly
that.
Yeah, they got, like, when I worked for the Times as a junior journalist, I had to do makeup and have my nails done and see if that, like, what effect that would have on people, and also went on this sort of dating holiday to Switzerland. It's like, just go and do crazy stuff and report back on what happens.
I dressed as a meerkat once on This Morning, but still, that's not actually potentially fatal.
No, and in fact, the thing that Larry Donovan became famous for was that he was the first person to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge and survive. He wasn't the first person to jump off it. The Brooklyn Bridge had opened in May 1883, and quite impressively, it took 2 years before someone jumped off it. It was Robert Emmett Odlum, who was an eccentric swimming instructor, who apparently, he was trying to encourage firefighters to use safety nets as standard. At the time, there was this widespread widespread belief that a long fall through the air was fatal in and of itself, no matter what you landed on. So he was trying to demonstrate that a person couldn't be killed by falling alone, but somewhat undermined his point by dying. He struck the water sideways on. This is why Donovan chose to use the way to choose. And he basically gave himself internal hemorrhaging. Now, this might inspire a normal person to think, well, let's not jump off the Brooklyn Bridge then. But it actually really seems to have inspired 19th century New Yorkers to think, oh boy, who's going to be the first person to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge and survive? You know, this was a real... People were kind of waiting to see, well, who's going to do this right? Which is crazy, you know. Instead of urging Donovan not to do it, the Police Gazette sponsored him. It was either $200 or $500, depending on which account you believe. But this was all because of this Victorian era development of the stunt. You know, the word stunt, as in the sense of a feat of daring do to entertain, was first used only 8 years earlier, and the timing is not a coincidence. This is the rise of an international tabloid press and photography in the latter half of the 19th century. That's what made stunts possible, you know. To be effective and to be profitable, they need to have that kind of publicity machine behind them.
Yeah, well, the Gazette published an article calling the event a dizzy leap and proclaiming Donovan as the champion bridge jumper of the world, and also calling him the paper's homegrown hero. Other media quickly followed suit, and the New York Times called him crank number 3. So I guess people were kind of like, okay, we're going to have to report on it, but also we don't approve of this kind of thing.
And the reason there was disapproval for this was because, content warning, lots of people had thrown themselves off it to kill themselves, you know, already. And as we sit now in the 21st century, thousands of people have killed themselves from the Brooklyn Bridge. And that's something the police didn't want to encourage. Even then, in 1886, the police knew they had a duty to try, you know, it's a fundamental thing to try and protect people from throwing themselves off bridges. 12 members of the public even died when it opened in a stampede.
Wow.
They needed to be seen to try and regulate it.
Meanwhile, Donovan himself quite liked this newfound fame as being the bridge jumping guy, and he then attempted to stage a jump into the Genesee River in Rochester, New York, but he was arrested before he managed to execute that particular stunt. And after he was released, he was like, well, now I'm going to go to Niagara Falls. And his plan was to leap from the actually now defunct Niagara Falls suspension bridge. And on November the 7th, 1886, he actually managed it. He fell 190 feet into the waters below, once more wearing this now trademark derby hat. He was like, that's my thing. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, in April, he returned to the Brooklyn Bridge. This time, his mother, who kind of recurs in this story, she sent an urgent telegram to the police, who arrested him as he arrived at the bridge, and he was sentenced to 3 months in jail. Justice Duffy said in the courtroom, I am tired of these bridge cranks. Any fool can jump off that bridge, but these loons looking for cheap notoriety give me a pain. And he wasn't wrong. Such was the bridge jumping craze that while Donovan was in jail, another man, 19-year-old Emmanuel de Freitas, was also incarcerated for the same offence, and the original bridge jumper, Steve Brody, visited to bring them cigars.
So, where could he go to find another bridge that he could jump off? Answer, London. He came to London, England, to jump off London Bridge. Just 4 days after he arrived in the capital, 500 people came to see him do it. The police in England too tried to stop it. It was illegal. And actually, they were looking for the body of a 20-something woman who jumped in and died the night before. Nonetheless, there he was in his black frock coat and his waistcoat and trousers and his round hat. And he did survive. Although, according to The Referee, a publication here in Britain at the time, quote, his feats found but little favour and were only looked upon as a species of foolhardiness. We like a more sophisticated prank here in the UK.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it didn't stop Donovan. He then had a plan to jump from Bristol's Clifton Suspension Bridge.
If you know that bridge, that's even scarier than Niagara Falls, I reckon.
Yeah, 250 feet.
It's a bridge, yeah.
Oof.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, because he was coinciding it with Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee, his plan was to meet the Queen after he had done it. But again, his plans were interrupted when he was arrested on the bridge and charged with attempted suicide and sentenced to jail time.
He only spent a month in prison, but much more dire, he was released on a bond which obliged him not to jump off of anything for 3 months. And this meant that he was forced to job around. And In March 1888, he was getting desperate. He decided he was going to attempt the Clifton Suspension Bridge again. The problem was that there were police posted on the bridge to prevent this exact thing from happening. So he couldn't actually draw attention to his attempt. So he apparently did it under the cover of darkness, or so he said. He was brought to hospital in Bristol, wet and bruised, and some witnesses did report seeing him jump off the bridge, but it wasn't exactly a show-stopping event. Beforehand, he had said, I came from America to do it, and I cannot go back without having done it. I might as well be dead. And he had now, if you believe his account, jumped off the highest bridge in the world at the time without becoming anything more than a curiosity. He had nowhere to go from here.
Also, it's worth saying he was getting paid for this through bets. Right? So it's not just that he was sort of addicted to the adrenaline or something. As you say, this is what he knew how to do. People knew his reputation. And so even if it was just a case of chatting to people in bars rather than going through official channels or newspapers or whatever, he knew he could make money by doing this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that did tie in with the final jump he attempted, which was in August 1888.
Final? I wonder what could be about to happen.
Yeah, so at this stage, he'd really, if you forgive it, hit rock bottom, and he attempted to jump from the Hungerford Bridge over the Thames. He was
my favourite,
reportedly
Olly Mann's favourite bridge, that one. Just
bridge.
FYI. Yeah, it's a great bridge.
Okay.
So it's a shit bridge to look at, great bridge to look out from.
Okay, good bridge to jump off? Well, not, as it turns out. We're about to discover that. So he was really in this very destitute state. He'd spent the previous night drinking with just a bunch of newfound friends at a local pub where they were teasing him and goading him about his past jumps. And according to the New Zealand Herald, basically out of kind of some combination of pride or poverty or drunkenness or all of those, he accepted a £2 bet to leap from the bridge. And tragically, he drowned after the fall.
Apparently, just before he jumped, he, quote, waved his arms wildly and said, I am Larry Donovan.
Oh.
Yeah, ugh.
Guess what? Jumping from bridges isn't a good idea.
Yeah, we've learnt that you really, really shouldn't do a Brody.
And so another week of retrospecting ends. But next week begins a day early at Club Retrospectors. Join us now to get an exclusive episode every Sunday. Patreon.com/retrospectors.